Nadrich, mindfulness author and columnist at Daily Clout. My guest today is Mollie Engelhart. Mollie is an executive chef and founder and owner of Sage Plant Based Bistro, which I absolutely love, a growing group of plant-based organic comfort food restaurants in the greater Los Angeles area. She operates a 17-acre organic farm, Sow a Heart, focused on regenerative agriculture. She's a mother of 4 young children and is also a film producer and thought leader. Hi, Mollie. Welcome.
Hi, how are you?
I'm
Thank you for having me so much.
I'm so happy to have you here today. I know you've got your newborn that I just saw. You have your 4th baby girl.
Baby girl, I got boy, girl, boy, girl. So
Yeah, fantastic. You're 4th, and I know how much she wants to be with mama right now. So I'm so glad that we're going to have some time together that we could talk about some really important issues that are going on. So let's start with your journey and how you went from being an executive chef to operating a 17-acre farm.
I was a normal kind of entrepreneurial, wanting to do the right thing, green minded Californian Los Angelino. And I had been brainwashed to believe that veganism was the way forward, that was the way we could save the planet and all of that. And I was raised vegetarian and vegan through my whole life. My mom was vegan, but we ate butter. So because she one time melted margarine and it turned to like plastic, and then we never ate margarine again. So but we grew up vegan with butter. And then, as I grew up, I always loved food, and I grew up on a farm, and I opened these restaurants and one after another, and they were doing great. And I watched this Graham Sate TED Talk in 2000 and I don't know, 13, 2012, something like that. And it blew my mind, first about regenerative agriculture, about carbon, soil cycling carbon, healthy soil, healthy people, healthy food. Like all of it made so much sense. The microbiology in soil is the same as the microbiology in our gut. It blew my mind. And in it, he said that the biggest cause of gas in the atmosphere, if we are worried about global warming, was methane. And at the time, I was still in the fear consciousness about global warming. And so I thought, oh my God, well, how does methane get in the environment? Is it cow farts? Because I was vegan. And then it's not cow farts, it's food scraps. And then I realized, well, I literally have a business that makes food scraps nonstop, and there's no composting in LA at the time. And I thought, I can't be the biggest cause and doing it. Like I tried to do this thing that was for the environment, and now I'm the worst part. So I said, I have to have a farm. I have to compost all my scraps. And I tried to buy a farm, and my husband was undocumented when we got married. And I didn't know, but if you are dating someone who's undocumented or about to marry someone who's undocumented, buy your land first, because the banks are not going to finance you if your husband is undocumented. And so I then took us a long time to get a place and find someone who owner finance and all of that. But ultimately, I went from chef to farmer, although I grew up on an organic farm, because I didn't want methane in the environment. And I realized we were making so much food scraps. And then it all evolved. My brother founded Kiss the Ground, which is a huge nonprofit, soil advocacy nonprofit. And I'm on the board of that. And I really couldn't just have this farm and just make compost. And so that's how that journey began. And I was very naive and thought I would have this like beautiful vegan utopia farm and nobody would ever die. And the first couple of weeks that we had it, the neighbor's dogs killed all of our sheep, massacre. And I said, and I got present to that having a farm there's a lot of life and death, even if you're not harvesting animals and eating them. There's a lot of life and death. And that each bite of food, whether it's vegan or vegetarian, there's death on that plate, and that there's really to relish and enjoy each bite of food as the living being that is enjoying the sacrifice of death that went into that food. And it is, if it's an avocado, it's on einkorn bread. There's just as much death as if it's a steak. And I don't eat meat, but I no longer view my way of eating as somehow better than other people's.
Yeah, so it's interesting about the methane. Let's talk about, farming, okay?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
especially organic farming. So as you know all too well, there's this whole, I want to say it's false, even though you're the one that can guide us here because you are the farmer, I'm not. But what seems to be a false narrative about organic farming being a major threat to the global climate. You're talking about the thing about methane more than conventional farming because it doesn't use chemical fertilizers. Isn't that one of the things that they claim is a threat to organic farming? Why do you think at this time that we're in right now, though, what I'm seeing like in the Netherlands and all of these attacks that seem to be going after, let's not even just say organic farming, but going after farmers and their land like this and raising doubts, especially about organic farms being truly sustainable or not?
So my answer about this is probably going to surprise people. There is practices in farming that is not great for the environment, but not because I think that the ice caps are melting and the polar bears are dying and we're all going to be underwater here in a couple of weeks. It's so much deeper. It's actually so much simpler than that. So if you think about 25% of life on the planet exists in the top 8 to 10 inches of topsoil. And imagine something like a coral reef. So you can imagine all that life, because we can't necessarily see that life in the soil. So we may not view it as important. But if you're plowing it every single year and then just planting rows of cabbage and then you're putting your organic fertilizer on it and then you plow it again, the detriment that you're doing to that 25% of life that we can agree is probably important, whether you believe in God or universal intelligence or divine intelligence or the earth, mother earth, whatever the word you want to use, there's a reason for that 25% of life that's there. And so all farming that is heavy on tillage, heavy on plowing, has an impact on that 25% of life. And that 25% of life in the topsoil, they've found that in that microbiology that's in there, it's 70% compatible with a healthy gut. So we are meant to live in harmony with healthy soil that replenishes our healthy gut. And if you imagine not only over 100, not even more than 100 years ago, people were getting a cabbage from their neighbor farmer, from their own farm, from their backyard. They cut it, they rinse it off, they eat it, and then they're replenishing their microbiology that's from that soil. We now do all this, even if it's organic and it's HTPP or some kind of eco-friendly sanitizer, we're killing all the microbiology on the fruits and vegetables that we're eating so that we can get it to us faster, to last longer. And we are also killing the microbiology in the soil by tilling. There's many people, and I actually don't agree with this, but there's many experts in this field that believe that tilling is more harmful than Roundup. I believe Roundup is more harmful than tilling because we can reverse. But this is people that are smarter than me and know more about regenerative agriculture than me and more about farming think that tilling, there's many of them, and they may be correct. My concern with Roundup is that it's a forever chemical and the damage it's doing to all the shikimate pathways of all the microbiology in our body. And I think with tillage, we can reverse that in the soil. It's hard to get the Roundup, but I think you can also get, through microbiology, get Roundup out of your soil as well.
I mean, that's like, wow, because we know that Roundup is a cancer causing pesticide, was it fertilizer, pesticide, whatever it is. It's horrible. It's horrific what it's killing people. Okay. Explain to our audience who don't really know what the process of tilling is, and why you could even propose the thought that maybe that has its harm and there's nothing intending to be harmful about tilling, right?
There's nothing intending to be harmful. And I would like to say that I think that farmers in general want to do the best for their land, and that nobody should be villainizing farmers, and nobody should be taking away farmers' land. That is not on the table as far as I'm concerned. And even mandating that farmers use certain no tilling, I don't agree with any of that. Like, I just want to say that that's off the top. And the tilling is basically these big metal discs that would go into the earth and grind up the top and get it ready to plant again, like soften it if it got hard over the winter time, anything like that. And so you're breaking up the topsoil. It's also used for terminating weeds. It's used for terminating crops. If you finished one crop and you've taken out most of it, but there's still some alive, and to kill it like that. So these are one of the principles of regenerative agriculture is as little disturbance of the soil as possible. But by doing that, we're breaking up the habitat for this microbiology. And most of the microbiology in the topsoil only can live through a living root of a plant. So if you think about a tree, which is a perennial, the microbiology can continue to reproduce on the roots of that tree ongoingly, because the tree stays alive and continues to bring carbon out of the atmosphere, turn that carbon into carbohydrates, and feed it to the microbiology on its roots. So the way we do our row crops, we plant cabbages in a row between trees. And so I can send you a picture so you can see what it looks like, but it's basically trees that are perennials that can be a space for that microbiology to live. And then the vegetables growing in the middle. So the microbiology has a place to hide out and come back. So we're not acres and acres and so we're only ever having 20 feet that's fallow or unplanted at a time. And right next to it on both sides, there would be cover crop and trees on the edges. So there's many different kinds of plants being able to pull down carbon, turn it into carbohydrates, and feed that microbiology while we take the cabbage out and we put fava beans in, or whatever it is, like that.
Okay, so it sounds to me like leave farmers alone, or those that are farmland owners, they'll figure this out. Or it sounds like there's ways in which you can figure out. What's confusing,
I think more carrot, less stick. I think that if we subsidize corn and soy to the billions of dollars, and we make organic farmers jump through tons of hoops and put tons of energy out to be organic. We have to pay to be organic, and the conventional farmer gets paid to spray the chemicals. So I would say that we actually want to incentivize soil practices, incentivize, like, year over year. If you're pulling down more carbon, you have healthier soil, there's more humus in your soil, the microbiology is more year over year. We'll subsidize that, because healthy soil is healthy, clean water, it's clean food, and that's healthy microbiology. And that's connected even to our mental. So when people don't have good gut health, they don't have good mental health.
Right. But speaking of gut health, that seems to be the sort of the topic du jour right now, that there's so much gut disturbances. I've never heard more people complaining about gut issues. So, but I want to stay on the farming, because it can be confusing to someone who doesn't really know all the ins and outs of farming as you do. And then you suddenly hear about, like, what's going on in the Netherlands and how the Dutch government is trying to, and it's not that I want to jump from America to the Netherlands, but how the Dutch government is trying to seize farmers' lands, claiming that they want to limit nitrogen emissions, which is a policy that could end many farms and hit food production. When I hear that, it's confusing. It's like, are these things really, are they using the climate change as a guise, as a ruse, to go after farmers and their farmland, be it organic or not, And the thing that, it reeks of fishiness to me, because I also, with my book Time to Awaken, I did research on someone like Bill Gates, power grabber Bill Gates, who owns almost 270,000 acres across the states of farmland. It seems to me there's other things going on here.
For sure, there's other things going on, and it's not ever about uh the people. And it's not, there's not, this is nothing about stopping farmers from producing food is going to somehow make the planet a healthier place. We as humans are the apex species. We're the most intelligent species that we know of on the planet. And so we have a responsibility and to educate each other. But there was examples of Dutch farmers who were like, well, I'm cycling all my nitrogen. We are not using any off-farm chemicals, and we're only using cow poop and da 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 da. And they were, the judge still ruled against them. And so they're not even listening to other versions. So it doesn't seem to matter whether you're just dumping nitrogen that's from petroleum based, or you're using natural nitrogen from cow poop that's on your farm and you're naturally cycling it. It doesn't seem to be mattering. I think that it's fair to say nitrogen shouldn't leak into waterways. I think it's fair to say that that needs to be managed. Like, I believe that we shouldn't contaminate the commons. I believe in small government, but I think that the things that should be monitored are air, water, soil, food. Those are things that are the commons. Like, we all have to partake in them. We all deserve to know what's in them, and we all have to take responsibility for them. But to just say, I don't like how you're farming, and so we're going to take, make it, you have 24 hours or 2 years, whatever it is, to get to 20% of your nitrogen emissions, doesn't make any sense if you're not going to have a path forward. And that's why Kiss the Ground is working so hard this year to try to get the Farm Bill to move some of that subsidies money from corn and soy into healthy soils. Like, how do we get, I don't believe in government subsidies, but if we're going to be subsidizing farmers, if we care so deeply about the environment, why are we not subsidizing farmers to move their practices towards ones that make a difference? It's a win-win-win-win, but we continue to subsidize cotton, soy, and corn, which are the highest users of nitrogen, the highest users of glyphosates. And so to me, I feel like there's no way anybody can say anybody really cares about the environment. Well, we are subsidizing the worst kind of farming that is the most detrimental, but farmers are in survival mode. Nobody wants to be the generation that lost their farm.
Right.
And so they're in survival mode, and then we're continuing to having them sucking on the tit of the government, but we could say, look, we want to continue to support you, but this is what we want you to do. And believe me, a carrot is much more powerful than a stick.
But, okay, but what concerns me about that, everything always comes down to money, and big pharma, big agra, big everything. And
there's no difference. Big pharma and big ag are the same. It's Bayer owns Monsanto, Roundup. Like, they're all
in bed together. Okay. I mean,
it's the best situation. We can make you sick with the food, and then you can have to buy our drugs, and then you get more sick from the food, and then you have to buy our drugs. It's like a magical circle that goes around and around and around.
And I feel like all in these different sectors, one of them being farming, that they're going to be vulnerable and under attack, just like in every other area of businesses, be it small businesses, being farming. And, I think about, going back to Gates, because he seems to be in all kinds of everybody's business, whether it's farmland, vaccines, now impossible foods. And doesn't he own the genetic, the seed vault? Isn't he one of the owners, or the owner of the seed vault in Norway, called the Doomsday Vault? I mean, what about the genetic seed? I know Dr. Vandana Shiva speaks a lot about that. Scientist and philosopher Vandana Shiva speaks about when she says that the biggest corporate takeover on the planet is the hijacking of the food system. And someone like Bill Gates, and he's just maybe one of them, and obviously all these big corporations are trying to do that. She says that from the seed to the farm to the store to your table, corporations are seeking total control over biodiversity, land, and water. They are seeking control over how food is grown, processed, and distributed. And in seeking this total control, they are destroying the Earth's ecological processes, our farmers, our health, and our freedoms. What do you think about all that? I mean, clearly you've said some of it.
I think that she's absolutely right. And I think that we've let it's a runaway trade that we've let get so far away from us that most Americans feel they just don't want to know. So if you try to tell somebody about fluoride or genetically modified seeds or any of these one things, they could hear you. But you start to look about all of it, it gets very overwhelming. And so people just think the runaway trade has gotten too far and we're all going to be on a CBD currency and we're going to be eating meat that was printed out of a printer. And like, that's just what's coming.
Or crickets, maybe.
Or cricket. Maybe, if you're lucky, maybe you could have crickets. But I feel like we of the radical center, the radical middle, have to say absolutely not. I'm not eating crickets. I'm not eating food out of a printer. But honestly, it takes we the people. And it's very, very, very hard to get we the people to wake up and care. During COVID, we sold so many boxes, so much of our produce. I was like, this is great. People are waking up about organic regenerative food and wanting these healthy foods that haven't been picked 6 months ago and put in gas chambers. As soon as they were not scared to go scan their palm at Whole Foods and they just stopped ordering my box and went right back to Whole Foods, and my box sales went from 250 a week to 47 a week. Like that. I sent out a survey. Hey, what's going on? How can I improve my...
You weren't doing anything wrong. They just got their toilet paper back.
Yeah. And it was, and everybody said, oh, I'm so happy to just feel safe to go out again. And me and my family are feeling safe to go out. And I was like,
yeah,
like so disappointed, but we trade resilience for convenience over and over and over again. And running a regenerative farm, I lived in a golf court estate with a pool and palm trees, and a big, beautiful house. And I was a chef, and I could just have done that and have plenty of money in the bank and be right now. But instead, I wanted to be this example and do the right thing. And that takes guts, and it takes doing something. It takes spending your own money, putting your money where your mouth is. And most of us are terrified and unwilling.
Absolutely. I wrote a book about it. I have a book out called Time to Awaken, Changing the World with Conscious Awareness. I talked to Naomi Wolf, who is the
I love her.
She's amazing, who started Daily Clout. And I said, it's like we're living in a parallel universe. You've got people that are awake and people that are asleep. And when you talk about convenience, I mean, especially a place like, well, I don't want to name drop markets, but yeah, you're rubbing your hand or you're sticking your thumb, and and people are like, don't even know they're giving the data mining, and you're giving all your DNA information away, but because it's convenient for you just to like not even have to carry your credit card into a market anymore. And it's going to trickle down to the farmers and to the farmland. And my concern about that, which I'm sure is all of our concern, is where people are going to be succumbing to convenience and going, oh well, it's just
but we already are. When I tell people, they say to me, you've never fed your kids fast food? No, I absolutely have never fed. And they'll say, oh, well, you're privileged and blah, 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 blah. Okay. Yes. I was born in America and I worked really hard. And yes, I'm privileged for that that's where I was born. I came out of my mother's body in upstate New York, and that is a privilege. But my parents, who had me at 19 and had nothing, never fed me fast food, not a single time. I was never vaccinated. So I disagree. My foster son came to me through, he saw Mark Hyman on an Instagram, and he sought me out and he found me, and we ended up adopting him. And he was a young teenage high school kid from Guatemala. Like, absolutely not that people of certain socioeconomic care more than, or have he sought me out because he was sick when he got to America, and he thought it must be from the food. I've never been sick. He came to reunite with his parents. That was one of my first red pill moments, because I thought Trump and the border and unaccompanied minors and abuse and all like what we'd saw on and then he was like, oh no, they treated me really great. And I was like, oh, okay.
But listen, with all the money that our government can spend on even putting healthy food in schools, I mean, listen, and you talk about whether you're born privileged or not, these are kids that, whether you're going to a public school, a charter school, a private school, I don't care, we're being blitzkrieg. When I had my kids, I was being made fun of because I was pureeing their food, and I'm very holistic in my approach to how I fed my children, all of that. It's like they used to make fun of me because I would buy products, like at the time, I don't know who owns it now, but like Barbara's cheese puffs, let's just say. And I would show them the difference between Barbara's cheese puffs and Cheetos. It's like, hello, you can have a healthy version of this, but they continue to want to make everybody sick and kill everybody.
It's completely insane. And we have to be willing to stand up. And that is what people are not willing to do. I mean, even me and my husband are doing this ranch in Texas, and we're trying to get people to come in with us. And people are just terrified of anything outside of the norm. And
that's going to keep us, you and I, and all of those of us that are awake and know this, it's going to keep us stuck exactly where we don't want to be until we change, until we do something about it, right?
That's why I'm moving to Texas. And that's why we searched and searched, and I wanted water, and I wanted privacy, and I wanted to be super rural, and all these things, because enough of us have to say no.
Right.
And we have to be careful that our land is clean, because that 30 by 30 is to keep 30% of the United States rewilded by 30. Biden signed an executive order. It's a land grab for the American farmers. Believe me. Where are you getting 30%? What is the 30% of the United States that you're going to take? So if you take all the federal land and put them back into wilding, that's about 17 or 18%. Where are you going to get 13% more of the United States to put into rewilding? There's no way to do that without taking farmland away from farmers. Now, look at, in that thing, it says, so Texas doesn't have eminent domain. That's why I wanted to go there. But now I'm seeing that in that executive order, it says that if there's ground that's contaminated with chemicals, then they can take you, and they need to move you to somewhere else and give you a place.
Hold on, time out. If the soil is contaminated, the sudden train.
No, I know, that's what I'm saying. So look at that the Norfolk Southern was on the Ohio River. It's contaminating so much farmland. And then what happens? And then there's being explosions in Texas, in Florida, all around all the farmland and all the waters.
It's just a coincidence, right? I mean, it's just
a coincidence. And just a coincidence. And so that farm, I think that that's the play. I think it's a grab. Just like, I think if you look at where the protests were during 2020, and where real damage was done, it's kind of a land grab in all those cities. You look at like what areas got messed up. It's a land grab to redo whatever part of the city, for people to be able to buy it. I believe that it was a real estate acquisition. And I believe that if you look at where all these chemical explosions are happening, it's going to be a land grab as well, based on, it sounds very, in the executive order, it sounds very philanthropic. Like, if your land, you will clean it up with no cost to you
Yeah,
and
you
give
got
it
to read the
someone else to
fine
use.
print. It all sounds so philanthropic. It all sounds so altruistic. It all sounds, even the whole idea of the using of the climate change to manipulate people into believing. That's why you have those girls or guys, whoever is doing it, go into these museums and throw paint on these Van Goghs because they're using, it's so evil, they're using under the guise of climate change. All these
And
big corporations are, it's so evil.
and it's so crazy because think about the last time you heard anybody talking about climate in such a way that wasn't to sell electric cars, solar panels, green building supplies. It's never about the soil and the food and the water and the air. And then environmentalists used to be about the soil, the food, the water, and the air. That is used to be what we cared about until The Inconvenient Truth by Al Gore. Then all of a sudden it was like carbon and the whole world is burning. But a true environmentalist would not be okay with billions of gallons of Roundup going into the ground, all the endocrine interrupters in all of our soaps and everything. Like, I mean, why are we not? People are dying of breast cancer constantly. From my best friend died at 37 of breast cancer. I mean, and left her child behind. To say that people care about the environment, it's crazy pants, because nobody cares. You tell people like, well, there's fluoride in our water and there's chemicals in our water and there's birth control pills in our water and there's all these antidepressants in the water. And everybody's like, yeah, I got a filter. And it's like,
Yeah, they're gonna listen to this
you
interview
think,
and they're gonna be like, oh, TMI, not the people on Daily Cloud, but the people that don't know what's going on. And when I tell people, about, no, that's not a cloud, a white line in the sky, it's going in this direction. That's not a cloud.
oh my God, you should see on my Instagram. Last night I made a video. It's on my stories. That sky looked so crazy. I was like, nothing to see here, folks.
And
These are
totally,
normal clouds, just like you saw when you were a child. I never even seen chemtrails that looked like it. It was so
no,
crazy.
it's first of all, it's the worst it's ever been, and it's all over the world because I have friends that are all over the world. And speaking of farms, I mean, maybe you know her. I follow Ballerina Farms,
Yeah,
and everything looks so picturesque. And all I'm looking like, oh, what a beautiful farm! Oh, look at that chemtrail.
I know, in the sky. It's everywhere. My mom is in Hawaii. And I mean, it's so crazy. I just posted yesterday. I said, you can't talk about I said, please don't talk to me about climate change if you're not willing to talk about geoengineering, because
Absolutely. But you can't say chemtrails because then you're a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist. So we should probably just now say geoengineering. At least it sounds more scientific.
it's crazy. But I mean, if you just seen like just someone from Good Morning America just was pointing out about geoengineering just like a couple of days ago on her Twitter, and I thought she she seems to not be a tinfoil hat person.
Well,
Like,
let's just see if she has her job next week.
we'll
Okay.
see. I don't know.
I mean, truly, for people not to know, that whole thing which I love, about all the conspiracy theories, they've all come true. So, and that's such a manipulative term anyway, started by the CIA by questioning authority with the
Was all around the
Kennedy
JFK.
assassination. I mean, so that's what waking up is. And I'm sorry, people, if it's just too much information for you to handle and you want to just stick your thumb on that thing and it's just going to make your life easier. And those people, what's so upsetting about that is those people don't understand that they're contributing in their wanting everything to go back to normal, that they're contributing to this going on the planet.
And there is no going back to normal. We are livestock, and if you've ever seen them funnel cows into one of those chutes and then everybody, I mean, we are in that funnel and we can choose to all stop, turn around, and nobody has any power against us because there's so many of us. But if we don't and we just keep funneling into that chute, there is no hope.
They don't they don't believe it. Look, you know what we just went through with the so-called pandemic. Oops, I mean pandemic. It's like people just rushed to, and I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because we'll be here for another 2 hours. But look at how many people just without informed consent, like not even knowing what they were putting in their body, just hearing something called Operation Warp Speed, if that doesn't send chills down your spine, and people that were well educated, that were intelligent people, couldn't run fast enough to put something in their body that they don't even know what it is. I mean, all under like, you're going to kill grandma and you just follow the science. I say in my book, tell me what the science is. What is it? Can you explain to me what the science is?
Nobody knew. And I kept pointing out, because I like looked at all the things, I kept pointing out, well, more people died in the vaccine group than the placebo group. And they say, oh, but they didn't die from the vaccine. And I was like, okay, but if this group, more people died, I'm just not sure why everybody's rushing to take it. That doesn't make any sense. If the net gain is less, I'll take my chance in this other group.
Yeah. So we know. First of all, I had a big event at my home, and Ed Dowd spoke there. His book, Cause Unknown, the sudden adult death syndrome, of all of the deaths that have happened, the uptick deaths. So we won't spend too much time on that because that's horrifying, and they still have these so-called shots, whatever they're called. I can't even call it a vaccine. It's still on the market. They're still trying to give it to babies. They're still trying to give it to kids. It's crimes against humanity at this point. Have you heard that Gates? I cannot drop this man because he's launched something called PopinCloud. Have you heard about that?
Mm-mm.
PopinCloud, which is an app that aims to digitize farming operations by collecting farmers' data. Like, one more thing you have to think about, right? It claims to have the biggest crop knowledge graph with more than 500 crops and 10,000 crop varieties. I mean, it's like, even you're going to go to Texas, and I don't want to go into the mindset of negativity. I think we have the power to turn this ship around. I really do. I'm a perennial optimist, but I feel like even like moving from, let's say, California to Texas, it's like, are we always going to be having to look over our shoulders, And then how about they come to the farmers and they offer you just, so much money, not you, because I don't think that you're buyable, thank God. But, it's like, are we always going to have to look at what's coming around the corner here? Because it sounds like even with farming, that's the case.
I think that we will have to continue to be vigilant. I think that, but we were the chosen ones. We are meant to be here at this time. So I believe it's our job to continue to speak up and make the request, and speak to people's highest version of themselves. So I continue to speak up. I always have.
Speak the truth. Be truth sayers. Be brave enough for all of us to be truth sayers, and you say,
and when one person in your community is strong and speaks up, it gives power to those that don't feel quite as strong to speak up. So whenever someone tells me like, oh, it's easier for me to just stay quiet or blah, 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 I say it's no different for you to stay quiet than to comply. It's no different, because this life is not only about you. You are part of the whole, and you have to be the best cell in that body. And if you're staying quiet when your intuition is telling you not to, then you are the opposite of being the best cell in the body of the whole.
A term that came out of the Holocaust was do not stand idly by.
Do not stand idly by.
You say, Mollie, I can see the time is moving very quickly. You say, let's drill our own oil. You've said that, right?
I did say that.
Yeah, it sounds good to me. Can you explain it?
Okay, so people that believe themselves to be environmentalists, I believe, have the best intentions. Let me say this. I'm not saying that my girlfriend that drives her Tesla and has her cloth bags and goes to Erewhon and buys her butternut squash wrapped in plastic. I believe that she has all the best intentions. And when she goes to the voting booth and she votes for California is no longer going to drill in LA, or we're no longer going to be taking any natural gas from California. I believe that she has the best intentions, and she's just completely woefully uneducated about the situation. And so we can outsource anything. America's really good at outsourcing, right? But when you outsource, you're actually less strong because you've traded convenience and cheapness for resilience once again. We are not in a position to replace fossil fuels. Fossil fuels will be in our future. And the idea that we're telling children nowadays, like we can just stop with the fossil fuels, that's a lie. We don't actually have a way to get away from fossil fuels. So if we are going to continue to put gas in all of our cars, or we're going to continue to burn natural gas to plug our Teslas in, I think that we should not vote that we are no longer going to drill in America. We're no longer going to drill in California, because I think that we have the power to be the cleanest and the most responsible and take the best care of the facilities, and so that we make the least impact possible. We are buying soil from Saudi Arabia. We're buying soil from Venezuela. We were buying oil from Russia not that long ago. I mean, we say all of this stuff, and now we're not going to drill. We're not going to collect natural gas. Well, does everybody know natural gas is something that gets created when we're drilling for regular gas? So I live in Ventura County, and from my house, I can see multiple drill sites up in the mountains. And at the nighttime, they're just burning a flame up into the air of the natural gas. So we're now no longer capturing this natural gas and turning it into natural gas for your stove. We're just going to let it burn like a big flame up on the mountain. No, don't mind it. We're going to sit here and say that we're so concerned about the environment and then bomb the pipeline between Russia and Germany. Give me a break. Like, nobody cares about the environment. But when you take fossil fuels away, you're able to control people and you're able to push more people into poverty. So let's not do that. Everything about our life that Americans feel is great, everything that they can be depressed enough to have to take 70% of adults are on antidepressants or something, the way that you can actually be depressed is because the privilege of depression is because your life is so taken care of because of fossil fuels, because of the diesel truck, the diesel tractor, the diesel everything that got your food to your door, the airplane that flew your laptop or your MacBook Pro and your iPhone, and the kids that mined the cobalt for your computer and the lithium for your other computer, those children that are practically in unlivable conditions, was all so you can have this woke green lifestyle. I'm sorry. Stop exporting our bad habits. If we want to have oil for our cars, which we do, because believe me, our whole life, fossil fuels are what power our whole life. And should we be mindful? Yes. Should we take actions to use less fossil fuels? Of course. Nobody's saying that, but we're still going to use fossil fuels. So why are we exporting it to somewhere else? Why are we we're standing with Standing Rock. Meanwhile, the Achuar people in the Brazil and Ecuador environment is being trashed, and we're buying that oil. Someone explain to me why we're standing with Standing Rock and we're not standing with the Achuar people. So yes, I believe we should drill our own oil so we can be responsible for it and stop virtue signaling. And then, oh, well, we're going to just burn coal outside of the city and drive electric cars in the city. So who gets to breathe the coal? It doesn't make any sense. We don't have a solution to move away from fossil fuels. If you were to take my Ford Explorer and a Tesla, you're already at 40 billion whatever of carbon for the Tesla and 10 billion whatever for the Ford Explorer. So the Tesla has to run for 15 years to have it be better for the environment than the Ford. We don't even know if Teslas are going to be good in 15 years. And I'm not mad at Teslas. I'm not mad at electric cars. I'm just saying, if you don't have a solar situation to plug into, and you're not only plugging it in during the day with solar, blah, 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 you're not any cleaner than anyone else.
Absolutely. And also this notion that this, again, this mandated mentality of like by 2030, everybody's going to be driving electric cars. And what happens?
We're all going to have electric stoves and be burning our food.
Electric stoves, and when the heat goes up, or and suddenly we can't use our air conditioning, they shut everything down. Where do people think they're going to go? Where are they going to plug in their cars? And telling people, no, you can't have a gas car. That's control. To me, that's a tyrannical vision of a dystopian future that I don't want to sign on for at all.
And you don't think that it's easier to turn off the grid than it is to turn off? Gas is messy, and there's cans of it and buckets of it, and it's everywhere. And believe me, gas is a liquid, and it's flowing, and it can be manipulated. The grid,
yeah, good luck,
can be turned off.
Good luck.
That's why Texas hasn't connected to the bigger grid, because they don't want to have to follow all the regulations. That's why there's a West Coast, East Coast, and Texas grid in the middle.
And we recently saw, I don't know where it was, but there were when the power was down, where all these cars were stuck and couldn't go anywhere. I mean, that is in the big realm of possibilities. That is our future. They're letting us know loud and clear. It's like everything, even like the World Economic Forum. They can't tell us right to our faces enough of what they think.
You own nothing and be happy. You're going to rent everything, and a drone's going to bring it to your house. They made a video about it, and nobody seems to be concerned about it.
You know what?
The UN just recommended that we decriminalize sex between adults and minors. Explain that to me. How is that a good idea?
We're gonna talk for 10 more hours if we keep this up. Everything is a what show at this point. Okay.
It is, but all that we have, but here's the thing, resilient community is the answer. But we have to learn to trust each other.
People need to stop burying their heads in the sand. It's unbelievable. I say today, ask somebody if you're meeting them at a dinner party. Hi, how are you? Do you know who Klaus Schwab is? I mean, like, start the conversations with these things where people go, my friend of mine told me that she was talking to a very good friend of hers. She didn't even know what ivermectin is. Like,
yeah, I heard that. I heard someone told me that too the other day, and I was like, never had heard of ivermectin, never had heard, didn't know about pretty much any of it. And I thought,
this stuff, and only now, there's a great on Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s podcast where he interviews, I can't think the name of the guy, all about geoengineering. It's a great podcast to listen to. People need to get educated. They need to wake up. And this goes into your milieu of farming, farmland, foods. You're growing these foods for us. Where do people think they're going to be? And they're going to get all this genetically modified food. They're going to get this fake beef, which is...
I saw a Twitter the other day, and someone said, I don't see what the big deal is with farmers, everybody wanting to protect the farmers. You can get everything you want at Kroger. And I thought,
oh, gee, let's talk
about... But where did the stuff that's in Kroger come from? A farmer still had to grow it. And so I do think that we really, really, really have to build resilient communities and stand up, but we have to be willing to do that together. And the biggest problem in the truth community or the awake community or the conscious community is that we have to learn to trust each other as human beings and be willing to combine our resources and trust each other. That is why we're not, there's thousands and thousands of people that wish they could live on land and wish they could have a farm and wish, but they all want to do it alone. And I'll tell you what, nobody can do it alone. Take it from me. I have a small farm. We're going to a big farm. You can't do it alone. The reason families used to be 10 deep is because you need all those farm hands. And so we have to figure out how to do this together and trust each other and build resilient communities that can stand up against this.
That's a beautiful, really a very important and quite a touching way for us to, end the conversation, that it is a time for us to come together. community, communal living. That's the very thing they don't want us to do. Clearly, they don't want, the powers that be don't want. They want smart
They
city.
don't even want mother, father, child. They don't even want a family as a community, let alone a
Every,
larger.
everything is under attack right now. That's why these types of conversations and talking to our friends, talking to our neighbors, and really valuing the importance that you just spoke of so beautifully of what community can be about and what it should be about. How like one person's really good at this, they're good at baking, another person's really good at building, that we can really come together as a community and use our own respective resources in a way that we can build our own communities without government control. Wouldn't that be utopia rather than this dystopian vision that
Well,
these
that's what we're trying to do. We have a weekly call. We're talking about who's responsible for this, and this person's doing the library, and this, if we don't have internet, this person's doing the building supply, backup building supplies, and this person's working on gas storage or diesel storage. Like, these are things we're all having these weekly meetings.
Can we get on that note, Mollie, because we're unfortunately out of time, and it's so great talking to you. I know you have a little baby waiting for you, and your other three little ones. So tell our listeners what you think they need to know so that they can know more about what you're doing and how to really go to the source and find out how they can be helpful, and whatever information you think would be helpful for our listeners to know.
I believe that we have to know our farmers and we have to know our neighbors. I think that we think about our family as the most important thing. And of course, our nuclear family, yes. But if my mother's in Hawaii and something happens, the neighbor next door to me, who's a firefighter, and his wife are going to be far more important in that moment than my mother, my father, or anybody else. So having quality relationships with your neighbors is super important, I believe. And in this world where we all are stuck in our little box, I think it's important to have community wherever you are. Know your farmer, try to join a CSA, try to buy a local, not a veggie box that's just a collator and it's really coming from Walmart or whatever, but a real CSA, a real community supported agriculture box. And if you live in LA or Ventura, of course, buy it from me. Go to soahart.com and sign up to get your veggie box. But know your farmers, know where your food is coming from, because when the shelves were empty during the fake thing that happened for the last 3 years, we had food and people were so grateful, and they forgot right after the food went back to the grocery store of how grateful they were. But having a relationship with your farmer, having a relationship with a meat farmer, having a relationship with an egg farmer, having a relationship with a veggie farmer, and knowing where they're at could be the difference between having food and not having food when things are not as great as they are right at this moment. And I think that we should not take for granted how quickly life is changing. If my brother-in-law went to prison for 5 years, and I always talk about this because when he went in, there was no smartphones, there was no iPads, there was no iPhones, there was nothing. And when he got back, there was social media in a totally different way, and there was iPhones and all. It was mind-blowing for him. In that 5 years, I was just kind of in the change, but the world is changing so fast, and even changed over the last 3 years so fast, that there's no way for us to really know what's coming. And so be present in every moment with your family, with your children, spend time with each other, because we don't know how much of that we'll have, and be not in the space of fear, but in the space of taking the next step. And taking the next step to try to be prepared. And it's hard to prepare for something that we don't know exactly what it is, but take the next step, be in the space of love, not fear, be in the space of calling in the community, calling in the unity, and remembering that there's much more people than there is whatever is doing this to us. And in the Constitution, when it says we the people, that to me is the most moving part of it, is that we have the power if we come together. And so join with your fellow people, find your tribe, and start building a future, whatever that looks like. Everybody's going to have a different vision of how that's going to look for them. And so order our box if you want on soahart.com. And I'm just Mollie. Oh, I'm Chef Mollie on Instagram, and Soahart is just Soahart on Instagram. If you want to reach out or have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
That's awesome. Mollie, thank you so much, really, for all that you're doing. And I will be visiting you in Texas.
Yeah, we're gonna setting up a whole retreat center. Lots of people are gonna visit us.
And keep up the amazing work that you're doing. It's so awesome, really. I'm sorry that Sage isn't here anymore. You know, one of my favorite.
Well, I mean, we still have 3 locations, and so we are, and the Culver City, we're gonna do a to-go only cloud kitchen because we just couldn't support the 5,000 square foot restaurant. But we still have our Echo Park location, Pasadena, and Agora Hills.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. And thank you to our listeners for being a part of this conversation with Mollie and I. And don't forget to subscribe to Daily Clout so you don't miss important content like the conversation that I just had with Mollie. Until next time, see you soon.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, it's Naomi Wolf of Daily Clout, and I just want to give a thank you to our sponsor, The Wellness Company, whose chief medical team includes some of our most respected colleagues, including Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Harvey Risch. So the Wellness Company offers COVID and vaccine injury treatments, including ivermectin, as well as dietary supplements based on the guidance of these noted physicians and epidemiologists, such as Spike Support, which is designed to help combat a spike protein. So click on the link below or head to dailyclouthealth.com to purchase their products. You can also gift healthcare to your loved ones, which is something I've been doing. I'm excited about the Wellness Company being able to offer medical advice without the pressure of Big Pharma. Please use the code DailyClout for 10% off. Thank you again to the Wellness Company, our sponsor. Bye-bye.